Hello and welcome to my video where I'm going to show you how to knit twisted moss stitch. In this version of the popular moss stitch, we're going to be twisting at least half the stitches in the pattern. And to twist those stitches, we'll be working them through the back loop, or TBL for short. Essentially, that just means we'll be taking the right hand needle into the back of the stitch rather than the front. And this perhaps leads to a finer looking texture, as the stitches are a bit more compact. I'll start by showing you the half twisted moss stitch where we're going to be twisting half the stitches, and then I'll move on to the full twisted moss stitch where we're going to be twisting all the stitches. And this is just for comparison purposes. Okay, so to begin you need to cast on an even number of stitches. I cast on 16 using the long tail cast on, but you could use your favourite method. For row 1, which represents the right side or the front of the knitting, you need to begin by knitting a stitch through the back loop, or K1TBL for short. So instead of taking the right hand needle up through the front of the stitch, you take it down through the back of the stitch instead, like so. Cross the right hand needle behind, and complete the stitch just like a regular knit stitch. And that's one twisted knit stitch completed. Then bring the working yarn between the needles to the front and purl a stitch. Then just repeat these two stitches over and over until the end of the row. So take the working yarn to the back and knit one through the back loop by taking the right hand needle down through the back of the stitch and then completing it just like a regular knit stitch. Then bring the yarn to the front and purl a stitch, and so on until the end of the row. Then for row 2, which represents the wrong side or the back of the knitting, you need to begin by purling a stitch through the back loop, or P1TBL for short. So whereas normally you would take the right hand needle down through the front of the stitch, you take it up through the back of the stitch instead, like so. To start with, it's easier to look at the back of your needles when you do this. Cross the right hand needle in front, and then complete the stitch just like a regular purl stitch. And that's one twisted purl stitch completed. Then take the working yarn to the back and knit a stitch. Then you need to repeat these two stitches over and over until the end of the row. Since rows 3 and 4 contain the same techniques I've already shown you, instead of demonstrating them, I'm just going to put the full pattern up on screen. Once you've repeated these rows a few times, you should have something a bit like this. If you look closely, you can see the stitches that are twisted. For instance, here in the V-shaped stitch, you can see that the strands of yarn are twisted at the base. However, on the back you can see that the stitches are not twisted. And that's why this is called the half twisted moss stitch. Note that this is the unsymmetrical pattern for twisted moss stitch, and if you want to knit the symmetrical moss stitch instead, then this is a pattern you would need to follow. Then I did a section of full twisted moss stitch for comparison purposes. As you can see, every stitch in this version of the pattern is twisted. And once you've repeated these rows a few times, you should have something like this. So at the bottom is the half twisted moss stitch, and at the top is the full twisted moss stitch. As you can see, there's not much of a difference. Really, the difference is on the back. You can see twisted stitches on the back of the full twisted moss stitch, but not on the back of the half twisted moss stitch. So my recommendation is to do the half twisted moss stitch because it's quicker and easier, unless you need reversible fabric, and then you'll need to do the full twisted moss stitch instead. And here is the pattern if you want to knit this in the round. And that's it, that's how you knit twisted moss stitch. I really hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.